I'm Natasha.
And I'm Penny.
And this is the WIBs. I am so excited for this episode. I just cannot contain it any longer.
I can't believe that you and I are doing an episode on this. I
want to cry.
I'm
want to cry.
I'm a little
You know
bit
what?
worried
This is for you people, not for us.
Yeah.
This is for you.
We put down our creative brains for a second and we tried to embody the financial mind, because today what we're talking about is mastering financial literacy, tools for financial management in business. Da, 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 da.
Duh. I can hear my accountant partner just absolutely pissing himself right now, being like, bro, what do you know?
No, but we're the perfect people to talk about this, and here's why. We're idiots when it comes to this stuff. And so
this is my worst. This is like the bottom of the barrel.
Yeah, this isn't my favorite thing in the world.
But it's important.
It is important. And I also think that there's a bit of a stereotype when it comes to women around
that we are playing right into.
We are like right into like, oh, we hate numbers, or we like pretty things. But
shit.
Spreadsheets and shit like that are important.
Absolutely.
Put that on a t-shirt, please.
Yes, look. Financial literacy. Let's highlight the significance of it to begin with, because let's completely, like, if you don't know your numbers, you are you have to know your numbers. That's just it. Like, regardless of whether you enjoy it or not, I think it's extremely important to know your numbers. It's one thing that I definitely learned the hard way. I remember when I first started working in my first job, I was so excited because I thought, like, oh my God, we're making so much revenue. I'm so good at my job. And then I realized that we weren't making any profit.
That's upsetting.
And I was like, what's profit? Now, this was my first job.
You don't surely you don't mean it like that.
You can speak to my old boss. He will clarify that that's probably exactly what I said. Yeah. Then he explained the difference between GP, net profit, all of that stuff. And I was like,
sexy.
Wow, this feels like a lot of work. That feels like a you problem. And then when I started wanting to start my own business and get into more of that entrepreneurial side, I realized that it actually wasn't a choice anymore, and I had to understand what all these different things meant. Otherwise, I wasn't going to make money. And I wasn't going to be able to grow my business, because, to be completely honest, revenue is mostly for vanity if you're not making profit. I didn't realize that. I had to learn that the hard way. And that's kind of what we're speaking about today is, you know, the importance of it, why you need to know about it. We're not coming at you as, you know, CFOs telling you you must do this. We're coming as you two gals who in different careers and have had to learn different parts of it to get ahead.
Yeah. And I think it's like, when I was at high school, I always wished that someone would just give me the basics of this and what I need to know from a financial perspective to just get through life and not completely balls up.
Well, wait, you're saying that you don't use the Pythagoras theorem in everyday life?
No, I mean, I do try to use it to draw my triangles, but it's like other than that, I don't really have much of a use for it. But I guess the whole point and the concept behind it is being able to level yourself up at work. And I think that, you know, it's all fun and games. We're talking shit about, like, you know, oh, we're just like the pretty fluffy things. But the reality of it is that a lot of the times women aren't given the same opportunities or given the same like pathways as men to be able to kind of have that exposure and have that build up of financial literacy and be able to kind of understand and grow and build on that. And the thing is that when you apply it in a practical sense, it's extremely interesting. Like, absolutely. I may not love the formatting of a spreadsheet, but I like the end result.
Oh, I live and breathe spreadsheets. I wouldn't be able to do my job without spreadsheets. They don't feel the same.
Yeah.
Like without data and all the things.
And that's what it is. It's basically, it's financial data. And I think when you rephrase it and reframe it like that, and you talk about it more about what the end goal is going to be for the tools that you're using when it comes to financials, then that puts a completely different spin on it. Because like, I don't know, if you do put your hand up, that's fine. But I don't know anyone that looks at a spreadsheet and is like, oh, I'm ready to go. This is my jam.
Yeah,
like,
I think my partner does.
Well,
yeah, I don't know. I think he really loves spreadsheets.
Well, some people like it.
If
Maybe
ever to turn the other way, I think it'd be spreadsheets.
But I think it's because there's no grey area in that, and you and I deal predominantly in the grey areas of life.
Grey's gorgeous colour.
Grey's gorgeous.
We play with the grey.
We really do. But I think the thing is here that when you're having this black and white version of events, and I guess being able to have this level of like data information, it basically helps you make better informed decisions about your financial well-being when it comes to your career or when it comes to your personal life as well too. Because I hate that feeling of not being knowledgeable when it comes to how I should manage, budget, I guess proceed around my finances. You know, I own a home. That's something to consider as well. I need to be able to kind of be more across that not just in business, but in my personal life, or as an entrepreneur looking to start my own business one day, or as a manager being able to educate my team.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, okay. So financial management in business, what do people need to know about? I think there's several things that people need to know about. This can be, and also a lot of this can be for both personal and for business as well. But one of the first ones I'd say is budgeting and forecasting. It's something that we've had to really, since when we both worked within a publicly listed business, that was huge because everything was public knowledge. So we had to really be quite clear on our numbers versus working for a privately listed business or working for ourselves. You can kind of have a forecast and be like, yeah, well, you didn't hit it. But when you're actually talking to stakeholders and shareholders, it's kind of like, oh, okay, no. You can't just play around with these numbers. It's completely different. So this budgeting and forecasting has played a huge role in both of our careers, I'd say, especially so in the past few years, so I think, okay, budgeting and forecasting, if we had to kind of explain what each of them are.
I mean, I guess it comes down to like what it does assist you with. So for the budgeting, the forecasting, it basically comes down to being able to track your expenses, to help manage your cash flow, to help make informed decisions about how you're going to be investing and how your company or your business or whatever it might be is going to be growing. So that's the budgeting side of things. Whereas the forecasting side is more about, I guess, involves like you're estimating for the future financial outcomes of your business based on the data and then also the market trends. And that one, I do feel like when we do this sometimes, and I'm sure other people agree, it feels
Crystal
like
ball.
I'm literally getting out my crystal ball and I'm sitting there and like, what will it be?
Well, especially you cannot tell me one person who was able to forecast accurately, not even you, ChatGPT, regards to during COVID. Like COVID just completely threw forecasting out the window. As soon as you thought that we're getting to a normalized period, bang, something else happens. Like it was probably the most difficult time for us to have to learn that skill of forecasting because for us, we were like, wow, okay.
What do you compare it to?
What do you compare it to? We don't have anything.
comparison.
There's nothing. And we are data nerds. As much as we talk smack about, financial literacy and all that stuff, we live and breathe the data and we use data to make decisions. But, no amount of data was able to give us the forecast that was going to lead us into the next few years after COVID because it was just such what was the word that they kept using?
Unprecedented.
That's the one.
God,
Unprecedented.
That's burnt into our brains now.
It gives me shivers. But yeah, that's where budgeting and forecasting, play into the business. But the reason it's important as well, I completely respect, is because you need to be able to have a forecast because it helps you with, hiring, advertising spend, all the things that make up a business is the most important thing. And I'll always be grateful for having to learn those in such a up and down time during COVID where it was, forecasts were done weekly.
Yeah. And because you had to be that kind of agile in your response to things. But I think the cool thing about the side of budgeting and forecasting is without realizing, or maybe you don't have the actual formatting to fully understand it, particularly if you're working maybe in a smaller type business, you're bootstrapping things a little bit more. I think you do a level of this without even realizing. And I like to say this to people because I'm like, I don't want particularly women in this kind of space to be afraid of these things because you hear budgeting and forecasting and it can sound intimidating. It can
just
sound
big words. It's literally just numbers.
Well, it's coming down to, how you manage your expenses so you don't overspend at the end of the year so you can have a level of profit, not just revenue. And then with your forecasting, it's like looking at what's happened in the past to a point and being able to kind of plan for what's coming up ahead. And if you look at it like that, that is a completely
simplified.
It's a simplified version, but I think people need to see it and hear it like that because a lot of times people over fluff and over complicate what is in reality like a very simple theory. It's just about there's like obviously nuances to it that makes it more complex.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that kind of brings us into the second point, which is financial statements. So I remember, I was a part of a group called the Entrepreneurs Organization, and they'd hold 4 key big long day strategy days, and one would be on people, one would be on strategy, there were like 4 pillars of business growth. Execution, and then the last one was cash. And that was the one, naturally, I hated the most. And I remember sitting there, and again, there's no embarrassment here. We're just talking absolute as it's happening. But they kept talking about a P&L. And I was like stressing. I'm like, I don't know what the F, what do you, and I was like, I just assumed that this P&L had to be the most intricate, incredible, analysis, financial state. Like I had this, thing about what a P&L was big because everyone kept talking about it. No one actually said what P&L meant, but I just had to know, like KPIs. People say KPIs, like what's a KPI? Like it's completely fun. If you're not in that world, I learned everything, jumping in head first, not through books, unfortunately. I probably should have. But they kept on saying P&L. And then when I realized it's profit and loss, then when I realized it's something that you just extract from whatever tool you use, whether it's MyOB and Xero, I was like, oh, I have one of those.
Yeah.
I was like, wait a minute. Woohoo, I have a P&L. Like, but you don't, because there's so many, what you said before, there's so much jargon around finance that I completely respect when somebody's in that space. It's like when we talk our jargon with marketing.
It's shorthand.
We have so many shorthand things, whether it's AOV, whether it's CVR, whether it's CRO. Like people, like when I talk like that, they're like, what?
Yeah.
And I'm like, fair. Like I'm not saying it to flex. I'm just saying it because that's just the language we use.
Yeah.
I get that's why people use that language, but these financial statements are so important.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And it basically gives you, I guess if we're going to go back to a more simplified approach, it gives you your insight onto like your revenue, what your expenses are, what are your assets in the company, what's your cash flow looking like day in, day out, what are your liabilities, like what's your risk point in your business. And that's where your financial statements, once you have a level of understanding of them, can really help you in all of those areas. If you take it back to that, I think it makes it easier to digest it.
Absolutely. And where it helped me when I had to look at my P&L strategically. So let's be really honest here. Like I'm not ever going to be a CFO, right? That's not my skill set, but my skill set was strategic, looking at the business strategically and how I can utilize the P&L to get what I needed. And how one of the tips that I learned from one of those days was when you're looking at a P&L, each line item, every single person in your leadership team or any key member of your staff should have a line of the profit and loss, towards what they do because it's so important. Like what you said before, Pen, there's such huge pillars of what success looks like that somebody should be having their name towards it. It's not up to the CEO or the manager. It's not just up to them. Everyone should have that. And then, there was all this talk about like, how do you blah, blah, blah. And I was like, let's just completely simplify it. Put a name next to every single one and then you go forward. So you don't have to make it over the top. You don't have to complicate it. You just go forward with that.
Yeah, exactly. And I also feel like this is where when you're in a business, if you do have the resources of someone who is owning that department and looking over your financial statements, I think it's a really great, share a voice exercise where you can go to these people in your department and ask them to get them to explain what you do. Like if you book in an hour of someone's time to be able to go through it, you'd be surprised how open people are to be able to kind of having that conversation with you. It's something that I've done as recently as 6 months ago, and I've literally asked, hey, can we please go through this together because I want to understand it. I don't, and that's okay, but I really want to get my head around it. So can you please run through this with me?
Absolutely.
And at the end of it, when someone literally broke it down like Dummy's Guide to Excel for me,
Yep.
much easier.
Absolutely. So number 3 is financial ratios. So these are really important. Financial ratios are calculations that provide a deeper understanding of a business's financial performance and health. How I use these, and I think where these are really important is just to switch gears for a second because we do talk a lot about established businesses. I think financial ratios are really, really important for startups as well. So when you're looking at starting up your own business, working out, margins is one of the most important financial ratios that you can work out for your business before you go to scale. We use financial ratios in a lot of the decision-making process that we have for marketing, whether it's percentage of advertising that we spend per revenue, and regardless of what it is. But when you're first starting your business, it is extremely important to really work out those profitability ratios so that you're able to scale and work out what's variable, what's fixed, and leverage them.
Exactly. And honestly, like when we were researching this episode and I saw the headline financial ratios as a topic and an area to research, I literally broke into like a cold sweat. The idea of ratios to me just reminds me of being like year 10 maths and like me just not getting it. But the same thing as what we've spoken about consistently through this episode, when we apply it practically, I'm like, we're already doing it.
Yeah, absolutely.
As marketers, as creatives, each day in, day out, it's like, oh, well, yeah, of course I need to figure out a ratio of percentage for my margins, or I need to figure out how profitable a promotional campaign is going to be.
How much of a percentage is labor per cost? Like this, we use financial ratios in all of our conversations, especially as marketers. But for a business and for business health, it's really important as well because it's something that it's a lot easier to. There's less variables with percentages. I feel like, you know what I mean. Like it's like, okay, well, what's the percentage of? It's like conversion rate. That's something that's fairly consistent because it doesn't matter how much traffic you're getting. If it's good quality traffic, the conversion rate, the changes in it should be something that you can rely on. Versus if you're getting, bots. Like we see it all the time. When you get bots to your website and the conversion rate drops, it's because the traffic isn't right. So those kind of percentages are so important and we live and die by them, to be honest, as in marketing and in business growth. So yeah, that one's the financial ratios. And then we've also got cost analysis, which I would say that, how can I say this? Well, look, my partner put it quite nicely when Penny helped him plan my engagement.
Yes.
Where he
This
said,
is not my favorite.
where he was like, yeah, okay. So I gave Penny a budget and, some would say a cost analysis.
Yes.
He said, this is what I want to spend. And he said to me, Penny didn't really take the budget, did she?
No.
And I was like,
No.
no. Penny is more of a visionary, let's say. She
I
sees
just
the concept.
see what it needs to be and what you should spend.
Exactly.
versus not. And to
That's
be
your cost
honest,
analysis. That is us describing a cost analysis. That's your cost analysis.
You won in the end.
Hey, I won. I've got an amazing. He did the most beautiful surprise proposal ever with your help and with the lack of cost analysis, to be honest, because cost analysis allows businesses to understand their expenses, identify the areas of unnecessary spending, how dare they, and optimize the cost structures. So it's all about improving profitability, reducing waste, and maximizing operational efficiency. Essentially, anybody in your operations team, that's what they're focusing on.
It's obviously my strong suit.
Whilst us marketers are working out how to spend money, they're working out how to save money and optimize and be more efficient.
Yeah.
It's the best way to describe it.
It doesn't sound sexy, but it's really important. And I need like a ops person like glued to me when I've got the credit card in my hand because I'm like, you know what?
So do
would
I,
be
don't
great?
worry.
More.
Yeah. You know what? You give me a budget, let's double it.
Yeah. That's what I deserve. That's how I like to live.
Yeah. We can quite literally justify any spend. Like we are the worst people for each other because I'll be like, oh, do I need this? And then Penny will come up with the most beautiful justification as to why I need it. And I'm like, you know what, Penny? You're right.
Yeah,
you are absolutely right. I do deserve this.
I do deserve this alligator coat. This is excellent. I will buy this for myself. I'll use it 3 times in my life.
God, don't. Last year was the worst. We literally spent every single event that we had for work. We needed a full
I didn't even
new
tell
outfit.
you about my iconic order yesterday.
Yeah, tell me.
It's-
Oh, no, it was Click Frenzy, wasn't it, or something? So you had like 30% off. It's
the
worth it.
savings
See,
were
cost analysis.
honestly outstanding. $500 I saved. I don't want to
There you
talk
go.
about.
The fact that you save $500 kind of speaks volumes, but that's okay. We don't focus on that because you know what? We aren't accountants. We aren't accountants.
We're not.
You know what? The return on investment for that, I'm sure, is high.
Your
Just don't
fiancé
tell your
is,
husband.
My dad is. They're going to be horrified at hearing
Sorry,
this
Evan.
advice.
Sorry, Alex.
But it's okay. We'll be all right.
I know they're going to be so disappointed in us.
Oh no, they'll be proud. Like we're doing it in our own
They're like, you tried.
way.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you tried.
The final one is risk management, which obviously is one of the most important parts of making sure that you're financially literate. Is that in a business? Sorry, because obviously there's a lot of financial literacy outside of business. There's a lot of other stuff which we can chat about after, more of that personal one I can chat about after this. But in this situation, when it comes to business financial literacy, risk management, so implementing risk management strategies is crucial for financial stability. This means that you need to be able to identify potential risks, assess the impact, and develop plans. This includes, insurance coverage, all of that stuff. And these are the things that okay, if they're not a huge strength of yours and you're looking at it, this is why people pay for insurance. This is why people have insurance. It's risk management. It's not necessarily up to you to be like, this is what's going to happen. Like you as a leader, you need to work out what needs to be managed and what risk needs to be managed. You don't necessarily need to do it, especially if you're not the right person for it.
Yeah, that's true. But also it does come back to things like if you're talking about risk management, then there's something like if you're working in like a retail business or a branded business or whatever it is, it's like that diversification of your revenue stream. So a good example is within COVID, okay, you had a snack office subscription
brand. Office subscription business, just as they all closed.
And exactly. And so, you need a new revenue stream now because, hey, no one's in the office. And that's an example of risk management. To be able to keep your business going, you needed to pivot, like buzzword of 2020. You need to pivot to find out how you can reduce the risk in terms of your business overall.
Absolutely. And there are a lot of tools out there. There's one that I would say, there's one that I've come across it's called guidemybusiness.co. We'll put it in our show notes, but they're a group of women that are absolutely incredible when it comes to, this is more for startups again. This is again more if you're looking to start a business and you're looking at that risk management piece where it's like trademarking, copywriting, a lot of those other pieces that are a bit like, oh, do I have to make this investment straight away or not? They're really, really good for that. There's, as I said, there's a lot of tools out there that you can use to kind of help assess and do that side of it. So they're the business ones. As when it comes to like personal financial literacy, there's a lot of different things that you can use, different tools. I think that, in a business, obviously the tools to use is your CFO, accountant, MyOb, all of those, Xero, all of those ones. But when it comes to personal financial literacy, I think it's really important to self-teach as well. I have this chat with my best friend all the time, and our partners hate us because we were, reading, what's that one, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. We were reading that at like 11, and then like we go to our partners like, what are we doing next? We've just bought a house. What's next? How can we continue to build that financial literacy? Like that is something that's constantly going through our head. Property development, always trying to upskill ourselves through different resources. So I think it's really important to continue to try and upskill yourself when it comes to financial literacy, both personally and for businesses. But there are some like apps that you can use as well that are really helpful.
There are some apps, and also if you're wanting to hear, like, I guess 2 women or 3 women talk about financial literacy that are not us, there's a podcast that is really fantastic for this called She's on the Money.
Oh my gosh, obsessed.
Yeah.
I was listening to it when we were trying to save for a house. It was incredible.
But I think it's like she really does break down all of the tools of what you need to look at from a financial perspective, whether it be for work or for personal, and really kind of get into the guts of it so you can understand it in a way that's really kind of digestible. But we've got some really amazing tools and strategies as well, what you mentioned, of what you can start to look at if you're looking to build up your financial literacy on a personal level. And there's a couple of examples we'll put in the show notes, but things like Pocketbook, TrackMySPEND, MoneySmart Budget Planner, Splitwise. These are all tools and apps that you can have in the palm of your hand on your phone to be able to kind of assist and help you along your way.
Yeah. A lot of them are free as well.
Yeah.
Like a lot of them are free. There's even some really pretty Etsy templates that you can buy to help budget. I did that for when I'm planning my wedding, which let's just say that I have not been able to do a cost analysis on that.
No,
and I
you
am
can't.
really, really over budget, but that's okay. We will just keep hustling and it'll all be fine.
Absolutely.
Anyways, I really hope everyone enjoyed this episode. It was a real, we had to really challenge ourselves to dig deep, but I think we actually know a thing or two about financial literacy, if I do say so myself.
I think so. I think we've really convinced those people that we know it too. But we promise, like, if you have any questions, we'll be able to help address it. If you want to kind of chat a little bit more about it, we're also interested in learning and knowing more. So if you've got anything that you want to address in a podcast on a later date, send us a DM, send us an email. We'd love to kind of help you tackle this area of a business. And thank you for listening. We'll be in your ears again next week.
Thank you. See you then.
Bye.